and they would get the same basic appearance of our page. So let's create a fourth page that's based upon our number 1 page and also a style sheet. So add that in here, and this one will be div layout 4 for the style sheet, and also div layout 4 for the ASPX page. And let's just close down number 3 here. And we're going to go over and open up 1. We're going to take the HTML in 1 and copy it. Go over here to number 4, paste it in here, and let's use the style information from number 1 and put that in our number 4 style as well. Now let's close down our number 1s just so we don't start to edit them. So once again, our HTML doesn't have to change at all. Just to reiterate that we're going to have 2 columns, our left-hand navigation column and then the main content area off to the right of it. And since we're not going to use absolute positioning here, I want to add in a body attribute again, or style element, and put 0 pixels for the margin and 0 pixels for the padding. Okay, so what we're going to do differently here, starting with the header, get rid of the absolute positioning, and instead of an absolute width of 800 pixels, we're going to use 100% for our header. Then for our left column, we are going to get rid of the absolute positioning as well, and here we're also going to use a percent, in this case 19%. Similarly for the content, in this one we're going to make it 80%, and down in the footer get rid of the absolute positioning, and this one we're going to make 100%, just like the header. Now let's go over to our page. Let's put in a link to our cascading style sheet. And there's one more thing we need to put over in our CSS. We need to float the left column, and we're going to float this one to the left, and our content, in this case, we're going to float to the right. Now we'll start up the browser here and view our page, and there we have the header column left and content, as well as the footer down here. But what's a little different about this is no matter how big we make the page, our columns, header and footer all will resize to percentages, and this is more visually appealing and also represents the fact, as I said, that this page would work better than the fixed width size in browsers with lower resolution. Let's close this down. Now last but not least, how would we do a 3-column approach here? So let's create a new number 5 page and cascading style sheet, and we'll see how to do that. And the style sheet, number 5. Now this can be largely based upon number 4. So let's take all of the style information in number 4, put it in number 5, take the HTML in 4, copy that, and put that over in 5. And we got the form tag here, so let's just get rid of that. We don't want that in there. And let's link in our number 5 style sheet. And the other thing we want is to add a right column, as we talked about. So then our HTML is all set there, it appears. We'll check that out in a minute. Let's go over to our number 5, and what we need to do here in our style sheet is just add a style for the right hand column, and we'll just put that down here. And all we want to really do here is change the float attribute to right for the rightmost column and left for the content. And let's make our left hand column now 20%. We'll make the content 59% and then 20% for the right hand column. Now, one thing we're going to need to do with our footer down here is we need to add the clear attribute, and both. And I see here that we forgot to rename this, so let's just rename this style attribute. So now let's open up this page in the browser and take a look at it. Here we have our layout as expected, with the left-right columns, content in the middle, header on top, footer on the bottom. And what's different about this compared to the fixed width layout that we did earlier with the left and right column is watch what happens as I resize the browser. You can see that both the left, content, and right column are nicely resizing according to the width of my browser window in this case, or it could be a different resolution of the user's screen. So these different examples that we've gone through here show you several different variations to use divs for laying out your pages, from absolute positioning and fixed width divs, fixed height divs, to the last one where we had floating divs that were based upon widths of percentages, so that the whole page layout resized very nicely as either the browser window or screen resolution changed. Now you could expand upon what we've done here, for example, by taking the content area of the page and adding some container divs inside of the content div that would partition the content area into, say, multiple columns of content for a newspaper-like approach, or you could position certain divs in certain places within the content area, all to achieve different effects. And you could put that style information out in cascading style sheets for each of those approaches within the content area, so that you could have, say, several standard formats to your content area, and then based upon which cascading style sheet you linked in, you would get a different layout to the content area, which might be very useful because you would have several different types of pages with different layout. You may have your home page, which has a standard layout, and then a main content page for sub areas of your site, and then the third type of format might be for content detail within each of those sub areas. And when you get to more complex situations like that, the benefits of using the div approach are much greater than if you tried to do the same thing with HTML tables. You may have noticed as we went along here that I talked about one of the benefits early on is that you have a separation of the design aspect from the actual structure of the HTML elements in the page, and that's played out very nicely here, where we have different cascading style sheets associated, in this case, with different web pages to provide a different layout. And as I said, that's really advantageous if you have a team working on page design, or even if you're by yourself, it's advantageous because it really segments things very nicely. So I encourage you to download the sample source code, look at these different examples, use them as a basis for implementing some different page designs in your own sites. And probably the last point I should make is that one of the things you will run into in div-based layout is that you absolutely have to test your pages in the major target browsers for your website. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and learned something about how to do page layout with divs and cascading style sheets. This is Chris Pelz. Thank you for your time.